Hello, nerds, and welcome to the Geek Girl Story Salon, where I talk to creatives from across disciplines and across the world about the art of storytelling. I'm your host, Jen Jackalone, lifelong storyteller and head geek in charge. This is the last episode of the season, nerds, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit in my feelings about it. You have been a terrific audience, and I have been a crazed dilettante who's been learning on the job, and you all have been tuning in week after week anyhow. The great joy of doing this show is that I get to talk to people who are doing work that I genuinely enjoy, and today's guest fills that bill in triplicate. You may have seen her as Betty in Dr. Doctor, but you need to not miss her as the eccentric, loving, and ruthless Aunt Elizabeth in Hulu's The Great, a performance that runs from hilarious to heartbreaking. I've been looking forward to this one. Welcome to the show, Belinda Bromilow.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a huge pleasure for me. I have to tell you, I've had a lot of interviews that I was excited about, but this is probably the one I've been most looking forward to. It's in terms of like a career high. This is up there with the time I got to interview the radical activist nun.
Amazing. Well, that's good company.
Yeah, I would say so. But yeah, that was back in my political blogger days. So. So we'll see about holding a little space to talk politics if we have time at the end.
Sure.
but I did ask you here because I so much wanted to talk about your work in The Great and as Elizabeth. So let's get rolling with that.
Yeah.
What was your way in with her? Like, how did you unlock her character and prepare for that role? Because there's a lot of layers to her.
Yeah, there is. Well, it always starts with the script, obviously, for me anyway. And I think, there were certain kind of keys, little clues. The butterflies, the fact that she wrangles butterflies sort of brings in a slightly fantastical element and suggests that she's a little bit sort of otherworldly or, unique. And then really it was just about looking to her relationships with the different characters and how she relates to them and sort of focusing on the differences in those relationships. So how she feels about Catherine coming into the family and how that changes, how she feels about her nephew, how sort of protective or what the nature of that relationship. And then likewise every character that she meets, just what her sort of relationship is with them. And it was also she sort of struck me as a character who was both otherworldly or sort of flighty, but also quite calculated, I guess, politically pretty savvy. And so it was nice to have that kind of that different sort of territory to play around in, and to flip between. That was kind of that was a real joy. Yeah. So it comes down to text, really. I mean, that's where the character exists.
Mm-hmm.
She was a true historical figure, but not in this version of events. So I didn't turn to history or anything.
Yeah, well, that's what I wondered. I often, when I try to describe the show to people, I often refer to it as, well, it's about Catherine the Great, but it's really kind of history fan fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly not historically accurate. It's I think in some ways it's quite true potentially to the essence of what Catherine the Great, was, and captures that quite beautifully. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's not a show if you're really into history and you like that to be a pure thing. Mm-hmm. But I think all histories are, absolutely open to interpretation. This is just a sort of a very playful interpretation, irreverent.
Indeed. Well, I mean, history, like storytelling, kind of really started with, if you really want to go back, it started with Homer. And what he was writing was more or less history fan fiction. It was his version of stuff that happened. And so I think that there's a long lineage and history there, taking history and doing our own thing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a beautiful kind of yeah, it's a kind of fascinating area to play around in if you're not going to be purist about it.
And there are purists. There are people who get upset about.
Yeah, of course, of course. And that's their prerogative, because that's obviously what interests them. And yeah, in that case, this show's probably one to avoid.
Right. Well, but I think you are adequately you're told pretty early on what sort of a thing you're getting into.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
You can't get milk from a butcher. So you got to know, you got to know what you're in for and then just go along for the ride and enjoy it.
that's it. It's, if you're watching Bridgerton for the historical accuracy, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did wonder, there's like you said, there's so many sides to Elizabeth. Like I feel like it required a certain nimbleness from you to kind of go
Yeah,
between
I
all
think
these.
yeah, sort of being open to sort of going in whatever direction she seems to go in, which can turn on a dime. So yeah, it did require quite a bit of sort of dexterity, I guess, which I tried to do.
Well,
Yeah, it's challenging to sort of flick between the two. But yeah, I think that yeah, that's the sort of challenge, but also the beauty of the role is that she's just so interesting and um, yeah, it's really nice areas to play in. That's for sure.
yeah, I mean, it's just so fun, for me as a viewer. Like we meet her and she's wrangling butterflies and I figure I have her clocked. I'm like, okay, so she's like this daffy bisexual and whatever. And then the first time you see that sort of calculating side, um it's such a fun surprise for
Yeah,
the
and
audience.
yeah, and it was a surprise to me too. I mean, we really just got the scripts sort of as they came, and so it was this kind of discovery for me. I didn't know that she was going to end up being so calculated and so sort of ambitious and manipulative. I didn't know she was going to get up to lots of the things that she gets up to, and also I mean, I don't know how much to spoil it. I guess it's all out there, so I can probably safely, but she murders a young child, and then we discover her own child died, and then we discover her child was killed by her sister because she slept with her brother-in-law, like, and none of this was decided from the beginning. It was all just came to us script by script. So that was kind of as much of a discovery for me as it was the audience. It's not like there was some kind, some shows you do there's overarching kind of plan and you're all very aware of that and you can layer that in and that's rewarding in its own way, but this was very much just a discovery. So I'd literally be at the read through going, wow, okay. Excellent, didn't know that, so I think that helps keep you kind of playful with it because you can't kind of attach to anything or try and lock anything in, which I think is good for me in particular.
So no peeking over Tony's shoulder, like
no. I think people often wonder about that, but I like to have the experience of being an actor as everyone, the same as everyone in the cast. So would he have showed me? I don't know. I never really asked because I wanted to discover it as everyone did. And he probably wouldn't anyway because he's pretty guarded about his work. So yeah, I didn't have any sort of like early surprises or anything, which I like. It's nice to just be in the process as it unfolds.
Right. Well, I mean, you must have some improv background or something, no?
I mean, in the sense that I've done, theatre.
Mm.
I haven't done actually a lot of improv theatre.
Mm.
But I think any actor, especially if you come from a theatre background, you gotta roll with it because it's live and anything can happen. I did a lot of theatre, especially as, I remember being a kid, well, in my early 20s and doing Three Sisters, Chekhov, and I had a car accident on the way to the show on the weekend, like a few days before, and I was a bit injured. I had like whiplash, and it was a tiny production, and I think there were like 4 people in the audience, and three of them I knew, and one of them was a friend of mine, and she's deaf, and she had brought an elderly friend of hers who like was really old. And anyway, and I was a bit like, surely we cannot, like, we outnumber the cast, kind of outnumber the audience, so surely we can just take a day off. And the director was like, no, absolutely not, show must go on. So we did it, and I was just like, I can't actually believe I'm having to do this. But then, this friend of mine, my friend who's deaf, she was like, that's the best, that was the best thing I've seen. And I loved it, and her friends loved it. And it was, it stayed, that, performance and that show stayed with her for a really long time. And she was very, very kind about it. Like, she really enjoyed it. So I was like, well, maybe it's not for us to decide, when but you've got to roll with it. And I've had, like stomach bugs and stuff, and run off stage and vomited in the wings into a bucket and then ran back on stage. Like, in theatre, you just got to keep going.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like, you hear a lot of stories like that about, actors who are having some ridiculous physical something going on. And, and they drag themselves through the show, and then everyone says, oh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, bless you.
Thank you. But
that there's a very huge, strong work ethic, in theatre in particular, and also, in TV, you can't not go to work because you're sick. So I remember in season 1, Elle and I were both really, really ill. We had this awful flu, and we were doing the war scenes, and we were up to our knees in mud, and it was cold, and it was a lot. And I remember the medic came on and gave us, vitamin B injections or something, like just to sort of get us through the day. And Elle in particular has an incredible work ethic. And so you just soldier on. And I look back on those scenes, I'm like, wow, I was so unwell. But it was still weirdly one of my favorite days on set. I think just when you're unwell, everything's very you feel it. You can't kind of float through,
right,
which it's nice to be in things no matter how difficult they are. Yeah.
It reminds me of a story about Olivia Williams, when she had found out, she got a call from her doctor that she had pancreatic cancer, which is really bad. Like 9 times, like more often than not, if you get that, it will kill you. And it was 5 minutes before she had to go on set to do this scene where she has to say goodbye to her lover or something. And she went out and did it. And I remember watching that scene before knowing that and thinking, God, but she's really hitting me. And then later, like, reading about that and finding out, oh, well,
she really poured it into the performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it can, acting's amazing for that, in the sense of being a kind of a way of, kind of a catharsis, and you can deal with things, that you otherwise might not. I mean, it can also get in the way. I did a play years ago, and I had a miscarriage during the season, and I think I only took, I don't know, few days off, and then I had to continue on, yeah, and that was incredibly traumatic, but also, yeah, I don't know, it was kind of, I think it was weirdly kind of helpful in a way, having to play. It was a very emotional role, and I think I probably, cried a lot more than the director probably wanted me to, because I didn't quite have a handle on it. But yeah, you do sort of crazy stuff sometimes. It can be kind of useful, I guess. I don't normally kind of draw on, personal grief in that way, but I couldn't avoid it. It was just there. So I just sort of rolled with it,
Mm.
You do. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
bizarre.
So, I mean, so, okay, so talking about just mortality and all of that, um, and would you ever want to, because you had, of course, those two brushes with cancer yourself,
Yeah.
and then, something like that miscarriage, would you ever want to do a role where the character went through something like that, something similar to that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's sort of not really any role that I wouldn't be interested in, if the script was great, and it was saying something that I was interested in being part of.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know how that would sort of intersect with my own experience, because sometimes, well, I guess it depends where I was at with my sort of therapy and my relationship with it. Sometimes I feel like it can be a little bit of a hindrance, if you've got a lot of pain around a certain thing, that you're sort of haven't really processed. It could potentially kind of get in the way of, performance for me. Um, but then I don't know. Yeah, I think I'd totally be open to it. It's like I said, it can be a really healing thing to um, be an actor and get an opportunity to sort of, I don't know, process, different emotions and feel different things. And I'm probably less inclined to do really taxing, emotional, dramatic theatre roles, because, to just do that every night, if there's lots of sort of grief, and to do that every night and have to go to those places all the time, can be really, just really draining.
Mm.
And I'd have to think really carefully about, whether I wanted to do something like that. So comedy is such joy, because, it's hard, but ultimately you get to play, and, that it feels really, it's a great kind of challenge,
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think it would only be something like that. It would only be like, oh, okay, like, can I, am I up for this?
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's such interesting territory. I mean, we all have stuff going on in our lives. Every single person, no one can escape death and grief and illness, and it's such a universal thing. So it has such power to connect with lots of people and help them, like, get a sort of a catharsis from watching something. That's what's beautiful about art, any kind of art, but that's the joy of it. The gift of it is that you get to experience something without having to experience things, so it feels sort of safe. I think that's a really nice thing to have in the world. I couldn't live without it. I don't think anyone could. So yeah, I wouldn't shy away from it, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember reading at some point that you were really interested in the part of Mariel when Tony originally wrote the play. So
Yeah.
what attracted you to her?
Well, look, to be honest, I did audition. I did audition for the role of Mariel. I didn't get it, unfortunately. This Mandy McElhenney, this incredible Australian actor, got it. And I mean, I have nothing but love for her extraordinary talent. So there was no ill feeling or anything. I think I just wanted to be part. I just wanted to be in it. I just thought it was such a sort of a reinvention of a genre, he'd just written something so unique, and it was right up. We have very similar taste, and it was right up my alley. And I was just like, I mean, I knew I couldn't be Catherine because I just wasn't at that place in my sort of career. And I was just like, okay, what can I do? Mariel? Yeah, sure. Okay. I just wanted to be part of it. I just wanted to be in that world, and just experience that. Just get to play around with that script on stage. So yeah, I mean, the character of Mariel is fantastic. I don't know. I don't know if I could do it though. She's very sort of, I mean, I can't see it any other way now than what Phoebe's done with the role. And she's just so perfectly wonderful in it. I can't even imagine, attempting that now, or any of the other characters, like people just bring their incredible talent to it. And you're like, well, I mean, forever sort of changed by the experience.
Yeah. Well, and certainly I can't picture anybody else doing embodying Elizabeth other than you.
I know that would be so weird, actually. If I saw someone else doing, I think I'd get very I think that would be weird. I think I'd get very protective and kind of nasty.
Do you feel like you learned anything from Elizabeth? A lot of times you hear actors say they develop a relationship with the character when they play them for a while. Do you feel like she taught you anything?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's weird. It is weird when you're with a character for years, 4 years. It's kind of like she's someone in my life, you know what I mean? Like I sort of think of her as kind of a friend or something. I think probably her biggest gift to me, she's a real pleasure seeker. She's a real, I don't know that she's a hedonist, because she's also very sort of calculated, but she seeks out pleasure. And I can get a bit sensible, So I think she's a really good key for me to kind of lean into that a bit more. I think that's probably the biggest gift that she's given me, to kind of enjoy, myself and let loose a bit more and let go a bit more, and be more open to experiences, and not just not to hold on so tight. I think I can have a tendency, especially if I'm anxious, to sort of, my tendency is to become controlling, or I just shrink. You know what I mean? Like I sort of, and she's got this real expansive, her kind of inner turmoil makes her expand, and kind of, the orgy when she thought that, Peter had died. And I mean, that's the last thing I would do if I thought, but I kind of love, there's something about that that's so great. She's got a real lust for life and for engaging in it and engaging her senses. And I've got that in me, but I need to encourage it, So I think she's been great for that. I kind of carry that with me now. What would Elizabeth do? I mean, then they're ridiculous. Like, often the answers are
not something you would actually do, but
yeah, exactly. But it's nice just to know, It's nice just to think, oh, she'd probably, it does help you kind of say yes rather than no. It helps you be a bit more expansive and a bit more, I don't know, extroverted or something.
That sounds very life affirming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. So how much does your psychology background, because you did study psychology for a minute there.
I did it for a minute. I mean, I'm just fascinated by people. I love people, and I'm fascinated by why we do what we do, and trying to understand, trying to get inside people's heads and understand them. So all of that stuff I just adore. And so I guess I guess just in that way, like it just and also I think, in any form of, therapeutic relationship, the kind of rapport that you have with a therapist, or, that kind of, therapeutic alliance, I think they call it. That's really, really important. It's almost the most important part, I think. Almost even more than whatever particular sort of discipline, it's to do with that connection that you have, to your therapist, and the nature of that relationship, and the trust, and the, all of that. And with that comes a lack of judgment. You just have complete empathy and compassion, for one another, or certainly you would hope the therapist has it for you. And so I think, I guess I approach characters in that sense. I'm not at all, you can't be judgmental of your character. You can't. Well, I don't. It doesn't work for me anyway. I'm sure some people probably can, but I can't pass judgment on what they do, because then I can't really do it. I can't sort of embody it if I have part of my brain that's judging me, or judging the character for doing it. You just sort of got to get inside them, and that's so I guess, yeah, in that sense, maybe having an interest in psychology and truly trying to sort of understand someone and their motivations without judgment, and just being very accepting of what they're bringing, I guess maybe that's maybe it influences me in that way. Yeah, because you've got to get your head around, with Aunt Elizabeth, for example, she kills a child. I mean, how does anyone do that? Like, how do you get to a point where that seems like a good idea? And you can't, as an actor, I don't think you can be like, well, she's a psycho, or she's a bitch. I mean, that doesn't, how do you play that? So you have to just sort of nut it out and figure out like what is it that she needs to satisfy for herself, or, you know, like, what is it that pushes her to that point?
Mm.
In her case, I think it's just, you know, she had a means, in my mind anyway, she had a means of justifying what she was doing, because she wasn't safe and he was going to topple her and she would lose everything. And she had kept him alive to that point when his parents had been killed, and she had, you know, kept him, albeit sort of, some might say, as a prisoner, but to her, she felt very fondly, you know, towards him, and she kept him safe. And then it was apparent, you know, he could, you know, threaten her place. And so she, you know, she had a position, I guess. And I think the older I get, the more I relax a bit, and the more I feel, you know, I don't have to justify my anything anymore. So maybe it's tapping into that. Maybe other women, you know, I know lots of women who have spoken about that, just feeling more at ease, more comfortable. Maybe that makes them want to throw a few punches. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I think, yeah, and maybe also, I mean, I would like to think that those roles are changing a bit. They're a little less male gazy, a little less, you know, voyeuristic kind of awful stuff, and maybe they're a bit more truly empowering, rather than, you know, faux empowering women, but actually just objectifying them. Maybe there's hope for that, things are shifting in that direction, and you know, women are responding to that. I don't know, that would be a nice idea. I like that.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I super enjoy things where women get to beat people up. You know, my books usually have women beating somebody up. So and
yeah,
you know,
what is that, do you think? Is that just like a acting out a kind of,
you know, I think it's because we culturally, and I think this is, you know, I mean, you never want to say something is universal, but certainly in Western culture, like, we equate like physical strength with being powerful. And I think that, you know, there's like something that just, you know, that we enjoy, like feeling that kind of raw power of, you know, I guess it's the female power fantasy, right? Like, you know, male superheroes are like the male power fantasy, and, you know, more of us, I think, are saying, well, we'd like to have that too. So, you know, like,
I mean, I do think it is great, you know, like when I do, you know, lots of Pilates and I feel really strong. It's really great. It's great to feel physically capable. You know, that is a really empowering feeling, especially because anything that shifts the gaze from, you know, what you look like to how you feel, especially for women, I think is gold, because, you know, there's still so much emphasis on, you know, what we all look like, which is so boring. So it's nice to do anything that can kind of combat that and make you just appreciate your body for its I mean, illness is really good for that, and having children's good for that, you know, like just anything that puts your body in a different you know, just gives you a different perspective on it, so you can appreciate that it's survived all these intense traumatic experiences, so you have a kind of value for it that's nothing to do with what it, you know, it's
like I had a friend ask me, a non-binary friend asked me, did you feel more, you know, particularly like womanly when you were pregnant and when you were, you know, giving birth? And no, I didn't necessarily feel that, but I definitely felt like I was doing something that should be impossible, you know?
How crazy is it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I spent most of I mean, I did feel really womanly because I'm just like so, thin and, boyish in my figure. So being pregnant was like a revelation for me, because I had like boobs and sort of curves, even though it was just like a big curve, like because it was a belly. So I kind of loved all that. But I just spent most of my time thinking, how amazing that we still do it this way. Like everything else, technology and everything else has advanced and everything else has changed so much. And obviously in a fabulous way for, IVF and things like that. So all of that, notwithstanding all of that's fantastic. But the actual act of like carrying a child, I mean, and I remember walking around and saying to friends of mine, I remember bumping into a director and an actor friend of mine, both male, and they were like, "How are you going?" And I was like, "I mean, isn't this fucking crazy? Like, is this amazing? I've got a person in here, and like soon, I'm gonna squeeze this person out of my vagina. Like, that's bonkers. Like, that's so." Yeah, just we carry it round inside us.
Yep.
I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And when I had my second child, I was very sick with complications from the surgeries from my cancer. And so they basically had to operate and sort of cut me open again from my sternum, right, sort of halfway down, while my baby was inside my uterus. And they had to hold him to one side and cut, basically I had all these scar tissue adhesions and stuff, and my bowel wasn't working, and I hadn't eaten anything for 15 days. I had nothing but like ice chips. It was hideous. Fortunately, I'd stoked up on lots of pasta just before, because we were in Italy. So I actually was carrying like good pregnancy weight. But so basically nothing was working, and it was a bit of a disaster. So they literally held him to one side whilst he's in, my uterus, and did all the other, sorted out all the scar tissues and adhesions and stuff, and then zipped me back up again, sewed me back up again. And then, so it was extra weird, because it's like I'd had this sort of, I don't know, like, they'd opened up the sort of general area where he was hanging out and just sort of kept him, you know what I mean? Like,
just sort of feng shui the baby to one side. And
the nurse afterwards, she was like, it was my job. That was my job. It was just like, keep him to one side while we do what we have to do. And then literally maybe, I don't know, 4 weeks later, I gave birth naturally. You're like, just, vaginal birth. And I'm like, how does the body do that? Like what the hell? I mean, not only the body, but like the doctors and nurses, and it's mind-boggling.
That's
how incredible we are. So it's like, it's the idea that women, and whether or not they've had children or not, the idea that, women aren't walking around out there just, beating their chest with this sense of capability and incredible power. It's such a shame. Such a shame we don't, I don't know, feel that a bit more.
Yeah. My first labor was 13 hours and no drugs, in a pool of water in my apartment in Brooklyn with my husband.
Wow.
And it was like an endurance trial.
Yeah.
And, once I recovered a little from that, I felt like, wow, that was actually pretty impressive.
Yeah. It's extraordinary. And you think about women who give birth, like I did some work in Uganda a few years back, and just the conditions in which the women were living and giving birth there. It's so sobering. and so extraordinary what women are capable of. It's just it really makes you aware of your privilege and and all of that. But it's just
No
it's
doubt.
extraordinary what we can do.
Indeed. Yeah.
Go us.
And that's absolutely true, but I still like watching women beat people up.
Yeah, sure. Not averse to that.
So we are coming up on time. I think, maybe one more question. And actually, did you bring anything for show and tell?
Well, I mean, I've got a few things. Oh, I've got this, which is it's a big like a Russian
Oh,
doll thing that Nick
yes.
actually had made for us. And what I love most about it is well, everyone for a start. Oh gosh, I wonder if we've got room to pull them all apart.
Oh my goodness.
And then
Yeah.
what's hilarious is just how tiny this Mariel.
Oh my gosh.
And then here's Archie.
Ah.
And who's next? Grigor. Oh, Grigor's come undone.
Oh,
Oh dear. Sorry, Grigor. There's Grigor.
oh,
I don't
wow.
know if you can see very
Oh
well.
my goodness. No, but you're
It's,
holding it nice up and close. I can see him.
it's elemental.
Oh my goodness.
It's hilarious. It
No.
kind of looks like
Oh,
that.
it does.
And
Oh my
there,
God.
keeps going. Georgina. Oh. It's funnier and funnier. Tatiana.
Oh. Ah.
Last but not least.
Okay.
Katie.
Oh my gosh.
How cute is that?
That is
I didn't actually believe how tiny Katie was.
that's impressively tiny. That is
And I
like
love to
smaller
see things
than.
going up. We had one when I was a kid.
Mhm.
So Nick got them made for us, and it was such a sweet thing to do. It's such a nice little memento of all the characters.
That might be the coolest uh show gift I think anyone has
Yeah,
shared on this
for
show.
pretty
That's
good.
pretty good. I am duly impressed.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I want to ask one last question, and then there's a speed round at the end. Which is, are you reading or watching or just consuming any media right now that you love?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, yes, I am. Okay, so what am I? I've been reading lots about psychedelics, mushrooms, um, and I'm super excited about that because I feel like that is absolutely the ticket moving forward in terms of like the trials that they're doing with mental health, with anxiety and depression and PTSD and anorexia, and especially anorexia because there's that's such a stubborn and stubborn mental illness with high mortality rates. So I'm fascinated by all of that, and also just mycelium and like the ways they're using that.
Mhm.
So that's kind of fascinating. I think that is absolutely like where it's at. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. And then what else? I really I really loved and was intrigued by Nathan Fielder's show, The Rehearsal. I found it really quite controversial and fabulous and exciting. I get really easily sort of bored by things, like when I'm watching things, I'm like, yeah, I know where this is going. I don't know. I'm a bit annoying in that way. And I find his work really interesting. So I'm excited to see his second season of Rehearsal, which I haven't seen yet. Not to say that I necessarily, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, but I'm excited for it because it does interest me a lot. What he does. I think he has a really brilliant mind. He's very, very talented. I've just seen Poor Things, which is my husband's new film with Yorgos Lanthimos, which is the best. It's just fabulous.
Well,
so
they're two brains together.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're a great combo, and this is wild. It's bonkers, and it's like a sort of a fantasy. It's just brilliant, and Emma is amazing in it, and Mark Ruffalo is extraordinary. Just incredible performances actually from everyone, and Holly's costumes, the production design. I mean, it's just, I'm a big fan. I'm biased, but I would love it anyway, I'm sure. So that's exciting. Okay. I would recommend people go and see that when that comes out. Okay. And Miranda July's got a book coming out next year. I'm excited about that, and that's months away, but I love her work. I find her truly unique and very inspiring, interesting, always interesting territory that she explores in such a, fabulous sort of unique, idiosyncratic way. I mean, I don't know what else. That's a pretty good list.
That's a pretty good list.
We've got books, we've got TV, we've got film, we've got mushrooms. So, psychedelics.
What are mushrooms?
Yeah, I mean, have you read Merlin Sheldrake's book, The Entangled? Oh, is it The Entangled Life? Entangled, maybe it's just Entangled.
No.
Merlin Sheldrake. And his brother, actually, Cosmo Sheldrake, is an incredible musician. But yeah, that book is it's just so brilliant. I really loved it. I think the possibilities of all of that stuff is huge. And very exciting. So
yeah. I had last week I had on a science communicator who has a podcast with her partner called Planty Planty Zuzu, and they basically have the theme of it is they have this hypothetical zoo and botanical garden, and each week they add a thing, and he's the animal person, so he adds an animal and she adds a plant. And I said, but who does the fungus? Who does the mushrooms?
And who takes care of that? Did they decide?
They made it her job to deal with mushrooms, but she acknowledges that they're not necessarily they don't really belong there. So
they're kind of in a place all of their own.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'm busy trying to get my brain around chaos theory, but I'm definitely fascinated with mushrooms.
Yeah, well, I love nature, anything sort of nature. Chaos theory sounds extraordinary, but I feel like I can't even, makes me a bit nervous even just saying. Whereas, the natural world and just, grounded plants, air, earth. I feel more comfortable in that sort of territory. I know these amazing architects actually who are making I can't even go into it because it's we're going to go off just a crazy tangent that's nothing to do with anything.
Okay. Well, then
A lot of
let's go to the speed round, and then you can tell me about it after I stop recording.
speed round. Oh gosh.
All
Okay.
right. Okay. We're going to start off easy, and then we're going to get a little weird.
Okay. And I have to be succinct with my answers? That's
Preferably.
okay.
Hopefully. Okay.
I'll do it.
Okay. Like I said, we're going to start off easy. Super salad.
Okay. Super salad.
Super salad.
That's easy. Oh God. Salad.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Oh. Oh God, this is the worst thing for me. Tea. Oh no.
Okay, right now. If you were offered the choice right now.
Oh, tea.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. If I'm offered it now.
Okay.
Good.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Okay. Pick one character from The Great that you would want to have a drink with.
Oh. Velamentov.
I think you would have more than one drink with Belinda.
That's why I said Velamentov.
And one that you'd want to have at your side at a table full of lawyers.
I mean, Aunt Elizabeth, me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Totally valid. One that you would want with you if you were at a high stakes blackjack table.
Peter. Crazy.
No, I get it. And one that you would make awkward excuses to not hang out with ever.
Well, he's left now, but Orlo probably. Only because Aunt Elizabeth never liked Orlo. I like him.
I thought he was an okay guy. I was disappointed the way things went with him.
Yeah, it didn't pan out well.
No, it didn't.
The bears.
Very sad. But at least Elizabeth still had her butterflies.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This was a delight.
I really enjoy your podcast. I've listened to a couple of them, and what I love about it is it's very. I'm learning things about things I didn't know about. Do you know what I mean? It's very eclectic, lots of different things, which I love. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad that you joined me. That's our show, you beautiful nerds. What a season this has been. I've been your host, Jen Jackalone. Please hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this chat, and check out the link in the description to follow Belinda's socials and keep up on all her amazing work. And if you haven't watched all 3 seasons of The Great on Hulu yet, what are you even doing with your life? It has been a blast. Stay hydrated, nerds. Take care, take it easy, and stay geeky.